Hi, you've tuned in to Radio Northern Beaches, your Listen Local station, right here on the Northern Beaches of Sydney. You can find us on your radio dial at 88.7 and 90.3 FM. Can't get to a radio? No worries. You can always stream our program live from anywhere in the world at rnb.org.au. And for listening on your own schedule, our podcasts are available globally at rnbpodcast.com.au. So be sure to follow and subscribe so you don't miss any episodes. Now, here is our latest podcast. The Nationals and the Libs split, and one of the issues was nuclear power. Now, after that, they came together and decided they wouldn't put forward the power plants, but they want to knock out the ban on the nuclear power. A statement that David Littleproud made was, in effect, not word for word, that other countries don't have an issue with nuclear. Well, I want to drill that down because nuclear waste is an issue worldwide, and everybody seems to be forgetting that. Okay, nuclear may be clean for the air, but for the planet, it's another issue. So let's look into the actual facts again. You may or may not be aware that in Australia, we already deal with medical grade nuclear waste. It's stored on its particular sites until there's enough of it, and then it's shipped overseas to be processed, and then it's shipped back to Australia, with the exception of what goes to the US. 8 shipments have left our shores since 1996 and 2009. 4 went to France, 3 to the USA, and 1 to the UK. 25 tonnes of vitrified waste was transported from Port Kembla under supervision to Lucas Heights campus upon its return to Australia by the Nuclear Waste Authority, Australian Radiation Protection and Nuclear Safety Agency, which is ARPANSA. So here are my questions. What actually is high-level radioactive waste? Answer: high-level radioactive waste primarily is uranium fuel that has been used in a nuclear power reactor and is spent or no longer efficient in producing electricity. Spent fuel is thermally hot as well as highly radioactive and requires remote handling and shielding. Nuclear reactor fuel contains ceramic pellets of uranium inside metal rods. Before these fuel rods are used, they are only slightly radioactive and may be handled without special shielding. High-level radioactive waste is also a byproduct of creating plutonium from nuclear bombs. Question 2. How long do uranium fuel rods last in a nuclear reactor? Answer: fuel rods typically remain in a reactor for about 6 years. Most plants shut down every 2 years for about a month to refuel. During each refueling, approximately 1/3 of the rods in the reactor are removed and replaced. Question: how many rods to each reactor? Answer: depending on the reactor type, each fuel assembly has 179 to 264 fuel rods. A typical reactor core holds 121 to 193 fuel assemblies. Question: what is Australia's regulation on waste? Answer: Australia requires all nuclear waste to be vitrified. In layman's terms, radioactive waste is heated to extreme temperatures, mixed with glass components, and cooled, encapsulating the radioactive waste. This type of glass is extremely strong. However, this process is not without issues, as 2 of the radioactive components are hard to dissolve, which makes it difficult to encapsulate them. Question: how is this waste properly disposed of? Answer: all these wastes can remain dangerously radioactive for many thousands of years. For that reason, they must be disposed of permanently, experts say. About a dozen countries, including Finland, Switzerland, and other European nations, and the US, are planning deep geological repositories for their nuclear waste. So, that's my questions and the answers to them, which obviously brings up a lot more questions. So let's have a look at the facts about the US situation right now. They've been storing approximately 2 million litres of nuclear waste since 1940s, a mix of liquid, sediment and sludge. This unprocessed waste is stored in underground storage tanks. About 1/3 of the nearly 180 storage tanks, many of which long ago outlived their design lives, are known to be leaking, contaminating the surface and threatening the nearby Columbia River. About 136 million litres of the stuff awaits processing at the Savannah River site. Regardless of whether you are for or against nuclear power, and no matter what you think of nuclear weapons, the radioactive waste is already here and we have to deal with it. That's Jared S. Frankel's matter-of-fact take on the thousands of metric tons of used solid fuel from nuclear power plants worldwide and the millions of litres of radioactive liquid waste from weapons production that sits in temporary storage containers in the US. While these waste materials, which can be harmful to human health and the environment, wait for a more permanent home, their containers age. In some cases, the aging containers have already begun leaking their toxic contents. It's a social problem that has been handed down to us from our parents' generation, says Frankel, who is a materials scientist at the Ohio State University, and we are, more or less, handing it to our children. This is a quote from an article headed "As Nuclear Waste Piles Up, Scientists Seek Long-Term Storage Solutions" by Josh McAboy, March 30, 2020. A version of this story appeared in Volume 98, Issue 12, Chemicals and Engineering News. You can find the full article online. So, my questions raised more questions, which is usually the case. And so I asked, does that mean Australia has to build a deep geological repository for their nuclear waste? The answer was, any country using nuclear power will be required to make plans for a permanent retention facility. So I take it yes. The cost of this would be in the millions or more, I expect, wouldn't it? Answer, prohibitive. And I presume the taxpayer will be paying for either the transport overseas and back of the nuclear waste for processing, or paying an incredible amount of money to build the processing plant, as well as having to build a deep geological repository. Answer, yes, I expect the taxpayer will be paying the bill. And a processing plant is not really economical unless it is processing for a very large nuclear power station. Okay, that puts into question the smaller ones. So that brings me to, given the containers built to hold the nuclear waste have now failed and are contaminating the environment, what guarantees do we have in Australia that vitrification method will not fail? Given the nuclear waste has degraded the original containers considered safe, how do we know that over time the glass particles will not be affected by the toxic waste and cause the glass to fail? Especially given this toxic waste takes thousands of years to degrade and it only took 70 years for the original containers to fail. The answer was, one that I expected, unknown. Tell me, how can we call nuclear energy clean when the byproduct is toxic and damaging to our environment for generations plus? Not just tomorrow, not just the next day, but for up to and past thousands of years. The cost we are not being told about is prohibitive. And why have the media been so silent about this issue? As quoted earlier, nuclear waste is a societal problem that has been handed down to us from our parents' generation, and we, more or less, are handing it to our children. Thanks to the American politicians who can't agree on where to put the permanent deep storage, their facility hasn't even been started yet, whilst the waste continues to leak. I don't want to be another generation kicking the can down the road and making it our children's, grandchildren's and generations to come problem. Do you?
Australia, the lucky country. We've got meat pies. We've got the world's best beer. But most importantly, top of the list, we've got Radio Northern Beaches 88.7, 90.3. Now hitting the entire world on www.rmb.org.au.